Lovely. We are live. So I'm just going to give a few seconds to everyone to join our live. Um, but in the meantime, I'm super excited to be here and have you here with me, ladies. And I'm super excited to share this experience with our audience on LinkedIn and YouTube.
Mhm.
So, a quick intro of how this is going to go. We're just going to have a quick round of introduction and followed by some not so spicy questions to lead the conversation around women and resilience. After which, we would be open to address some of the questions that were sent by DMs on LinkedIn, as well as left in the comments of the event. So to kickstart, I'll go first. Hi, everyone. My name is Muna Laragat. I'm a trauma informed coach and workshop facilitator. I founded the Grit Makers so I could help teams nurture resilience and be able to outperform the competition without burning out and obviously retaining people in the company. So every month, we get together here on LinkedIn Live with experts in their fields so we can talk about resilience and their experience, how they view it. And today, for our second episode, it's my pleasure to welcome these wonderful, three talented speakers who are here to share their own recipe for resilience and showcasing how women have that superpower when it comes to growing from setbacks. Before I introduce you, ladies, how excited are you? Can I get a whoop whoop?
Very excited.
Awesome. So it's going to last, we have an hour and a half. So we're going to be able to talk about plenty of stuff around resilience. And we hear more about Amity, Teresa, and Elizabeth. So without further ado, I'll let them introduce themselves. And Amity, will you do us the honor?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining. I'm really excited to be here and speak with these amazing women. And thank you, Mona, for hosting. So, as you know, my name's Amity. I am a operational resilience specialist. I focus on resilience in businesses. And on the side, my passion is working with startups and investors in the resilience space.
Awesome. Thank you. So it is definitely a lot about resilience here. Um, next, Teresa, do you want to tell us a little bit more about you?
Sure. So my name is Teresa Bartashevich, and I'm gonna tell you like a little background so you understand my maybe personality a little bit more when I will be talking about resilience now a bit further down the event. So as in a high school, I went to the economics school, and then for 6 years, every single day after the economics and all the usual high school stuff, I would go to art school and learn art history, painting, drawing, composition. After that, I studied advertising, bachelor's, and then data analytics master's. So when you look at my background, you will see this like almost STEMish kind of hard topics and then artistic background. So it's like some kind of duality. At the moment in the daytime, I am a marketeer by profession. I work for a robotics and automation company in life sciences, but in my spare time, I enjoy building tech products and entrepreneurship communities. And of course, enjoying all the art London has to offer. So if we go back a bit to that duality, sorry, I'm now gonna just do the punchline. For me, art and especially science or business really connect together because I believe that every marketing person or every business person is creative at heart, and that marketing is probably an expression, one of the most creative expression of the business in business. So, but in this business world, we are very constrained and focused on growth and cost at always, that everything you need to be tested in this very rigid framework. Like me, coming from data analytics background, I can tell you that. And this constraint, this like rigidity for profit actually constrains our creativity. And that's a problem for the future humanity. And we will discuss further down again why. So with my work, like when I'm working for my projects, when I'm choosing the companies to work for, when I do my side projects, my goal is to bring products and ideas to the world, which actually unleash this creativity in business people. So, for example, my daytime job in automation and robotics, we allow scientists to, not do mundane tasks and just concentrate on doing actual science. So, like the creative part of discovering something new. And in my side projects, I love connecting people, first of all, because community matters to me a lot. And also, I love building micro SaaS products and solutions which unleash completely different side of marketing, something a bit different to what we do every single day. The latest project being up to 11. So to finish it with what resilience means to me is that it equals believing in yourself. I think resilience is believing in yourself, but it's not that simple. You cannot just one day wake up and like, okay, I believe in myself. I mean, you can, but it's not realistic, and we need to be a little bit realistic. I think to believe in yourself, you must build the evidence that you're capable of great things. And how, I'm gonna talk later. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the background. Both Amity and Teresa, we're definitely going to hear more about yourself and what you're doing and your view on resilience. But before, Elizabeth, please, could you introduce yourself as well?
Thanks, Muna. Hi, everyone. I thought we'd be able to see people's faces on here. Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth. So I am really grateful to be here today. So thank you. And thanks to everyone for joining in today. I'm also excited to tell you what resilience means to me and also, a bit about myself. So my background it's quite diverse, really. So it's in IT, business management, and real estate. So my 9 to 5, I work as an IT professional. But outside of that, I've got little side businesses in real estate, especially, and I'm looking to scale that up. So I'll be talking about how I use resilience in all of my professional, personal, and side gigs. And to me, resilience is just the ability to keep moving forward despite life's little curveballs and challenges. We're all going to have challenges. But for me, resilience, be able to, face life with those challenges, fall down. It's okay to fall, it's okay to cry, but pick yourself back up and do it better. And I'll touch more on that, on how I do that later. Thank you.
No, thank you. And thank you all for joining us today. I'm super excited to have this conversation with you because I know we've spoken about these topics for so long and so much. And actually, some of you were in the previous episode. And Amity, we spoke in the previous episode about how fintech was an industry that calls for resilience, because when it comes to money, all the senses and arousals are high, all eyes are on the processes. It's an interesting field. How did you specifically end up doing what you do in that industry? What's your story?
Yeah, so I think like one of the common denominators in resilience professionals is like we don't necessarily strive to become that. We kind of find ourselves there. So yeah, my main mission in life has always been to kind of, I guess, work for myself and have that flexibility to enjoy the world. And so I've actually just, I guess, luckily found myself in the fintech industry. So when I was quite young, I kind of had a look at my skills and what I could do. And I went out and I started going for contracts. So I got a government contract where I was working for the Department of Defense and the Department of Justice, building out kind of like, I would say resilience operating procedures for them. So what do you do in an emergency? What do you do when technology goes wrong? And then from this, I kind of sidestepped into the financial industry. Again, looking at like trying to be resilient myself. How can I use those transferable skills to move across into a different industry? And so, yeah, I worked for my first banking client, which was Goldman Sachs, and I helped to build out their Office of National Assessment or Security Assessment in Australia. So this was very similar, but I guess more of like a political element to it. So looking at like, what are the risks in the region to our people? Do we need to have teams to support the different buildings and this type of stuff? And then again, thinking about resilience, I was like, okay, now I want to branch out. So I decided to pack my stuff and get on a plane like 2 weeks later, and I found myself in the UK. And so I guess that kind of coincided with the pandemic and also some regulations being released. So it's just been a matter of like thinking about what do I have, where do I want to go, where does the opportunity lie, and effectively been able to work in about 20 different countries now. So it's been really exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet. And I'm super grateful that you made it to the UK because this is how we got to meet.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different kinds of opportunities here, and I think being like the frontier of building resilience and pushing out all the regulations, it's a really, really interesting place to be from like the financial industry and big tech perspective. Yeah.
But we talk about finance, but most importantly, you've made democratizing resilience kind of your mission. Tell
Yeah.
us a little more about what's your why. It's a very popular question, isn't it? There's pressure on you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the why is easy for me. Like, I think I'm very lucky that I'm passionate about what I do, and I love the lifestyle that it's enabled me to have. Like, the thing that fulfills me most in life is being able to travel, experience different things, and I guess like learn from these experiences, because that builds your individual character and also makes you more resilient because you're consistently confronting challenges. So I guess that's my why individually, but from like a business perspective, working with big companies like the stock exchange, Amazon, some fintech companies, I've kind of figured out like a recipe for what resilience looks like in, I guess, the business sense. And I see so many big companies that have like a monopoly on this information and this strategy and this success. And I feel like it doesn't necessarily need to be isolated. And so I'm trying to transfer this knowledge to small businesses and investors and maybe try and reshape the ecosystem that we sit in. Because at the moment, like the way that we build businesses, it doesn't necessarily have a very resilient like recipe. And yeah, so I'm pretty much excited about trying to transfer this knowledge, make it palatable and practical and accessible to smaller businesses, and then hopefully make a better change in the ecosystem. So yeah.
Yeah, a lovely mission, a lovely mission vision. Can you think of like a specific moment where you thought, oh, this is really what made you like want to do this in the long haul?
You know what? I had an extremely difficult client, and I had about a year of working like, 19, 17 hours every day. And I was pretty much at the point of burnout, and I had some really negative experiences. And I was pretty much going to throw everything away and just pivot into data science because I just finished my degree. But I had a really interesting conversation with a person, and they said, like, the thing that makes you really good at what you do is that you always bounce back and you try and look at opportunities. So rather than like letting this get to you, maybe you just need to take some time and think about what it is and how you can adapt your skills the way you've always done throughout your career. So yeah, I took like 7 months off and I traveled, and I I went into a bunch of ecosystems, and I got very inspired. And I went, you know what? I have a recipe and I have a passion. I just need to move the industry, and I need to create kind of like a buffer between me and my clients. And that's when I went and studied like software development and all that type of stuff, and went away and built Mangrove. And so yeah, that was kind of like the moment for me. And now I'm on a completely different mission, but it's exciting and it's fun. So yeah.
Yeah, having fun along the way.
Yeah.
And we talk about these difficulties um, and setbacks, and we define resilience amongst ourselves. Teresa, I'm thinking about you now, and I'm thinking about the fact that we spoke a lot about resilience as an abstract concept and as a philosophical concept. Um, and the fact that it's said that knowing how to fail is really true resilience. What do you think about it?
Okay, let me go on a philosophical ramble then. My favorite topic. I just came back from a philosophy festival, so I'm ready. So, first of all, I don't agree, completely don't agree. I'm not, I don't like this toxic positivity, but for me, failure sounds really, really negative. And if failure sounds negative and we kind of equal failure to resilience, then resilience also become like a negative experience. It kind of gives this like false connotation that if you became resilient, it means that probably you went through a lot of failure, trouble, pain, etc., etc. And then we look at the risk like it's something very difficult to do, like it's very heavy, because when you think about risk, it has this very binary outcome. Is either reward or a failure, and more likely than not, unfortunately, it is failure. So I prefer to look at it from a bit different angle. I want to look it through, I've been thinking about it quite a lot, so it's like I prefer to look at it from the angle of life being this exciting adventure. So if resilience is building evidence for yourself that you are able to change and adapt fast, I think it's okay. I'm going to explain why I believe that it is that way, because I really like learning about futurism. I think that our technology is moving towards singularity. Everyone is talking about AI, what is going to happen in the future. Our jobs will not exist anymore, blah, blah, blah. All of this is doom and gloom. So it's to actually survive in this doom and gloom future, you need resilience, and resilience is building evidence that you can adapt and change fast. So it's a fundamental skill all of us will have to learn. Our kids will have to learn. Any like 22nd century human or organoid humanoid will have to learn to adapt to this swiftly changing future. So okay, the question is then how you build that evidence, right? And that's where my idea comes in, that you build it through the life of experimentation. You embrace lifestyle of experimentation. That's how you turn your life into this exciting adventure. You don't take risks and fail and get up and so on. You just have a never-ending adventure. Well, it ends at some point. So like, for example, so personally, I had quite a difficult upbringing, and I did not have strong mentors when I was young. So I was kind of thrown into experimentation. I wanted it or not. Like I had to go into this building, and to find my floor, I had to go through a lot of very random staircases and finally find where my home is. So, but through that process, I actually learned that I absolutely love experimentation. Like I love it. I thrive it. When I do something like this, that's where I feel alive, scared, but alive. So I never stopped this. And, but I also, more I think about it. Now I'm in my 30s, and I'm starting to realize that this is part of my character, but actually it's quite difficult for a lot of people to be jumping from one experiment to another or changing very fast. Like it's not that easy skill. We like humans, after all, animals of habits, and we like every day our comfort, knowing where everything is when you wake up and so on. But life will throw you curveballs. So it's like, as much as it's so nice to be in that small cocoon, you actually need to force yourself to go out of it. And so I will give you a bit of advice of what I apply in my life to have this lifestyle of experimentation. Hopefully it can make it a little bit easier. So let's look at it like your investment strategy. I think everyone who are in their little cocoons for sure will put aside 1/10 of their income for their savings and investments and whatnot. And I think to embrace this lifestyle or experimentation, we need to dedicate as well, like at least 10% of our time doing something radically different in our everyday life. But when I say radically, I truly mean it. So that this shock to the system is like an investment compounding into evidence how quickly you can change and adapt to new situations. So am I okay to keep going?
You still got a few minutes.
Yeah, okay. So, for example, I recently read this book by David Baker. It's called The Business of Expertise. And he tells that to become truly all-rounded expert in anything, you need to learn your job very well, put those 10,000 hours, kick ass, and so on. But you also need to embrace the joys and surprises of the world outside of your immediate circle. So successful experts go beyond just being knowledgeable. They have valuable experience. They can communicate their expertise effectively. They are connected to other experts, such as we are doing now. They are humble about their expertise. They are continuous learners, and they love to share their knowledge. And the most importantly, they know the limitations of their knowledge. I don't know what I don't know, right? Etc. etc. So in essence, David Baker emphasizes that true expertise involves more than just technical mastery. And what I mean by that, when I connect it to resilience or your everyday life, so like you can wake up and do the things you do, and you can be the best professional ever. You can be great partner, you can be a fantastic parent, but it's the same. You equal, it's like almost you do an autopilot because it becomes your everyday life. So it's not enough to have this technical mastery of your immediate surroundings. You need to surprise yourself. You need to go learn. You need to get uncomfortable. You need to seek feedback. Do whatever works for you. Everyone is unique. Do whatever you feel that will give you that evidence that you are truly capable and strong human being. Just shock yourself a little bit. So, like a very quick and beautiful example is my friend. I invited my friend last year. It's a very simple one, but I think it's the easiest one to understand. So last year, I invited my friend to join me for a wedding in India. And only when we, got the visa, booked the tickets, and so on and so on, I realized that she never been outside of Europe. So going first time to like this a bit like shockingly different culture is it can be difficult. So it wasn't like the easiest journey that specific time, but now long and behold, actually she got so inspired by that trip that this year she booked on her own to go on her own to China and Japan, and then it just shows this resilience, this evidence, like I've done it once, I can do it again. It's throw anything at me. I am experimental and crazy and whatever, but like I wouldn't probably go alone to China. So it was interesting because of the language barrier only. that. So yeah, and so yeah, it's just a simple example of how you can put yourself a bit outside, but the only certainty we know is that the future is uncertain, and hence why we need to let go of like this false security, because the security we have in our everyday life is false, and we don't have control like we think we do, and just embrace the life as adventure it is. So
Yeah, it's very beautiful. And I think it reminded me, because I started reading the Chimp Paradox. I know it's a bit late to the party, but it's never too late and it's spoken about the autopilot. That autopilot actually, and it's the same principle of NLP, like in neuro-linguistic programming, is that you can reprogram that autopilot. You can reprogram these beliefs that help you function. And if you set an autopilot that serves you and is healthy for you, then you can achieve so much more. You don't need to put effort, that hard effort, into everything. But talking about how we're programmed, there are many different other things that can impact us. So we mentioned childhood, we mentioned experience, professional and life lived experience. Something we spoke a lot about with Liz was diversity. And it was really, the first thing was, what was it as a female of color to carve your path in something like IT? like such a an industry as IT. But most interesting thing about that was really, what did it teach you about yourself? Is what this experience taught you about yourself?
Thanks, Marina. For me, diversity is, I'm like the poster girl for diversity, because I'm Nigerian by birth, from Lagos. So I was born in Nigeria, grew up there, and then moved to New Zealand, Auckland, New Zealand, as a teenager. I think I was 15, 16 when I moved. So I had my adolescent years in New Zealand, finished high school and university. And then after that, I moved to Australia to start my working career in Sydney and Brisbane. And now I'm here. So I don't think anyone knows about diversity a lot more than I do. And I can totally relate with what Teresa was saying about, just enjoying. And honestly, I think resilience it's a natural journey. It's something, it's like a muscle, when you go to the gym, if you're trying to get biceps, the more you work on those, the stronger it gets, the bigger it gets. That's how I see resilience. So it was carving my path in IT was a bit of an interesting one, because I'll tell you a story. When I was 16, I got a job. My first job was in McDonald's. Free burgers. And then so I would come up, I'll start my shift after school, and then finish late, so I could get enough hours, because I wanted to buy a car when I was 17. So in New Zealand, you could start preparing for your license around 14, 15. You have your learners, and then your P plates, and then your full. So anyways, I was saving up for my $1,000 car, which was quite a lot then. And my manager said to me, and then I wanted to also go to uni, and that's why I wanted the car, so that I could drive to uni and I could pick any uni far away from home. And then my manager said to me, why would you want to go to university? You're an African girl. Like, no one's going to give you a job. No one's going to understand what you say. And that really stuck with me. She goes, just work really hard in McDonald's here, and I'll make you become manager. And then ultimately, maybe you could attend McDonald's University online. I didn't even know McDonald's had a university, but oh well. So, and that just stuck to me, saying, like, why would she didn't say that to any other person, because there are lots of students in that McDonald's. Why just me? So instead of being mad at what she said, I turned my pain into power. And I said, you know what? If this is how she sees me, and this is what she thinks the limitations for an African girl is, I'm going to change the narrative. So I quit the McDonald's job. I quit the McDonald's job, by the way, because I couldn't work with someone that toxic, or someone that felt like I wasn't, able to do more. So obviously I found a job somewhere else. But I always remember that story because it shaped who I was, or who I am as a person. And I went on to university. I did quite well. I networked, but I always remembered her. And at some point, I felt like my success was because of what she said. And I didn't want to give her that power over me. So I had to just switch to say, you know what? I just want to be successful because I want to be successful. Because I grew up, I'm Yoruba by tribe. My tribe, we believe in education, highly educated, it's one of the most highly educated in Nigeria. I've got loads of uncles and aunties that are professors. So there's always that expectation for you to do well, and moving, and I grew up in an upper middle class family in Nigeria, and then moving to New Zealand, I kind of expected the lifestyle to be the same. So quickly did I realize that, upper middle class in Nigeria, in Africa, is totally different to upper middle class in the Western country. So, I had to go to work, support myself, and things I normally wouldn't do if I were back home. And all that, looking back now, then, because I was young and a bit silly, I thought, oh, no, this is so hard. I should just move. I should just go back to Nigeria. It'd be a lot easier for me. But I stuck it through, and now I'm here. So what I'm trying to say with going back to your question, how did I carve my path in IT? For me, I've moved to so many countries. I'm in the UK now. From Manchester to London, even within the UK. So it's like I'm always looking for better change. So someone gave me an opportunity in IT and said, you know what, Liz, I think you can do this. And I was like, okay, sure. Grab the opportunity with both hands, both legs. Learned, went online to learn, asked lots of questions. There's a lot of resource online. There's lots of people to reach out to on LinkedIn. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions and help you. There's that resource out there. So for me, it's the power of mentorship that has helped me this far, and the power of networking, and also having an open and positive attitude to say, you know what, if I can move from Nigeria to New Zealand at such a young age, and then move from New Zealand to Australia, and then Australia to the UK, I can do anything. So I no longer see change as a bad thing. It's instead I welcome it, I embrace it. And a lot of the time I do it afraid. It doesn't make it any easier. It doesn't mean once you become super resilient, you become like Superwoman or Superman. No, you still do it. You still feel that fear, but you do it afraid. And that's what I've done. So just done it afraid, and just use my network. And also, you know, for me, the power of relationships is so important. If I was going to interview somebody, it was not just going to be about how much they know. It's also, you know, the soft skills as well. You know, how they communicate, how would they get on with the team, what they have as a person. Because I feel like that's what has helped me get this far. It's just a combination of all of those. Do I still have time, or should I stop?
Yes, you still have time.
Okay. So yeah, what did that teach me about myself? It just taught me that I can be whoever I want to be. My dreams are very valid, and it's allowed me. It's open. It's like I don't fit in anywhere. Like, but I could also turn that on to say, you know what? I fit in everywhere because I've lived in a few countries. You know, if I'm on the tube in London, I'm sure they'll meet Mitty's from Australia. You know, they just met her through this. You know, so I've always got something to say to most people I meet, and that's because of my extensive travel and, you know, the countries I've lived in, the people I've met, the places I've worked, and really people are really out there wanting to support you, but they can't back you up if you don't back yourself up. You have to be ready to put in the work, and I think that's what, you know, my journey has taught me about myself. Is just I'm always ready to put in the work, and if I want something, I just go for it. Yes, it might be unattainable, it might be, but I'm always ready to devise strategies, to devise a roadmap. And that's the good thing about IT. I work as a project manager and business analyst, so I can develop roadmaps. I use those skills in my IT, in my personal life as well.
Yeah.
So that's what so I've got spreadsheet for my properties, you know, looking at property. I put formulas in to let me know if this property is going to be beneficial or not, how much returns I'm going to get from it. So, you know, it's just using those transferable skills. And you know, in our generation, it's just, I was reading somewhere that says the expected career change for people is maybe you expect about once or twice, but for Gen Z, it's about 5 to 7. They're going to have about 5 to 7 careers in their lifetime. So if this is the time, we need resilience more than ever, because it's not going to be about job title. It's going to be about what transferable skills you can bring to the table. How can I apply myself? Can I learn more? How can I learn more? You know, it's just little things, because learning doesn't stop at your university degree or your master's degree. Every day we need to seek opportunities to learn and get better at what we do.
And you mentioned Gen Z. There's definitely like something in here leading me to my next question for you, because I definitely want to ask you about how you inspire young girls to dream bigger, you know, especially with your experience and perspective.
How do I inspire young girls to dream bigger? Inspiration is not just for young girls. I think everybody needs inspiration. I'll tell you a little story about my mom. So mom is 65 or 66 this year. Yeah. And she came to London, I was in Manchester there, to spend a few months with me. And every day at 6 o'clock, I woke up, ran to the gym for a 6:30 class, back by my desk by 8 o'clock, back home by 7:38, and then have a shower, then back to the study. And she saw me do this routinely, like I'm at the gym 5 to 6 times a week without fail. And she just thought, you know what do you even do there all the time? Mom has always been a good dancer, you know, always walked. I thought that was exercise. And then she goes, you know what, I want to come with you. And then this day, Mom woke up at 5 and she was waiting for me downstairs, good to go, because I'm usually like running late. And Mom was just like, you know, I'm good to go. We went to the gym, and I could not get this woman out of the gym. Mom lost about 14 kilos in 3 months. You know, so, and then she was coming to me, how do I change my diet? What kind of, I don't know if you guys heard African food before, but it's really tasty, but quite unhealthy. It's not something I have every day. I would have it as a treat. So for me, what I'm trying to say is that inspiration is not just for young girls. It's everyone around us. And how do we do that? Or how do I do that? I've got a set of values I live by. For me, fitness is quite important. And people see that, or my mom saw that and thought, let me give this a go. She tried it, and now she's back in Nigeria. She's actually become an influencer, a fitness influencer, believe it or not. She's got her own Instagram following. She like records herself, and the other day she got her first paid partnership, I think last month or so. So she's actually making something from it as well. And this is a 65-year-old. So people are watching us, what we do. You living your life to the best of our ability is how you inspire people, because you don't want to be do as I say. You want to or do as I say. You want to be do as I do, and that's the hardest bit, having to emulate and walk that path, and and let people follow your lead, or so inspiration is not just about young girls. It's for everyone. It cuts across genders as well. I think I'm starting to ramble now, but yeah, it's the big thing for me is you need to have a set of values to live by and stick to that. And this, it's like a viral, it's the viral factor. I inspire you. Okay, I've inspired my mom. Mom's going back to Nigeria. She's inspiring her friends. Our friend's going to inspire somebody else. So it's a ripple effect. So the more you live your life to, be authentic about it, try and get, I know Teresa said 10% better every day. I can't do 10% every day, Teresa, sorry. If I can get better 1% every day, then that's value to me. I'm happy with that, because those little incremental changes would ultimately add value to you in the long term.
Yeah, this compound interest.
The compound interest, exactly so.
Definitely. No, just listening to you here and hear your stories, ladies, like I know for sure, I see in the comments as well, in the chat, like people are getting super excited about what you shared, and it resonated with them. And one question to the group now, and I want to get you all into this conversation. At first, obviously, this is called Women and Resilience. So I'm going to ask, as females, how can we tap into resilience to become a better version of ourselves? And a lot of you have mentioned that, you've spoken about the experimenting life, your lived experience, and really that so many different components about turning to the people around us and sharing. But do you think that as women, we're bound to be more resilient?
I can just jump in with an observation of listening to everybody else's stories, if you don't mind. But I think one of the key things I noticed is in all of the conversations we've had is we've kind of noticed that innate ability in ourselves, which is maybe against the grain or what we're told we're supposed to be. We're also open to opportunities and experimentation, and we're very good at noticing our transferable skills. And I think if you look at a lot of women, we're very multifaceted, but we're not really told to embrace this element to us. We're kind of always categorized or put in a certain place or told our limitations. And I think the sooner we realize that we have this innate ability to do all of these things, then we can tap into, I guess, our resilience a little bit more, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I personally would like to invite to bring a bit more kindness to ourselves. So I think contemporary world is a bit way too obsessed with bettering themselves all the time. It's like how we can become better versions of ourselves. I think it almost should be taken as for granted. The human condition, you need to become better version of yourself, because what's the point otherwise? So, but if we kind of get too obsessed, we kind of forget how to live almost in a way. So it's one of my favorite pieces as well. It's called the Burnout Society, and the creator of that piece is arguing that we are kind of in this cult of individual achievement, and then it actually led us to this burnout, mass burnout and depression, which we have now. I think probably on LinkedIn, one of the most popular words now is burnout. And it shows that there is something wrong in the society at the moment. So I think actually to even find that path to your resilience, to your individual resilience, we just need to slow down a little bit and think and just the path will unravel in front of you by itself.
Yeah. How does that resonate with the rest of you? How did you carve that time, that space to be kind to yourself?
I think we women don't do that enough, being kind to ourselves. Like compared to men are very, even for job interviews, if a woman doesn't feel like they tick every box, they wouldn't apply. Compared to a man, or to, tick one or two or three of the box of 10 boxes, and they would have the confidence to apply. So I think we just need to realize that we're a lot stronger than we think we are as women. We're very powerful creatures, and just like you asked before, we've got that innate ability to be resilient. But I see resilience as a muscle. You have to keep training it. So if you don't, how do I write this? Good comment. Yeah, thanks, Alina. I was sending to you. I was sending on Instagram. Yeah. So with resilience, we all have to be. Back to my thoughts. Yeah, we have to just believe that we've got that innate ability to, and just trust that feeling, trust that gut feeling as to why we can do what we do. So that's what I had, in terms of being kind to yourself. It's just remembering. I think for me, I try and have a network of people I'm accountable to. So when I'm feeling low, or I can go back to them and and they say, oh, Elizabeth, you've done this before, because sometimes you forget, especially when you're like when you're on the go, when you're a high achiever, you do this, you do something, you forget about it, you move on. So you need to surround yourself with people who remind you of what you've done, and just remind you, just be grateful, slow you down a bit, and remind you of your winnings, and also how you can get better.
Yeah, and that's interesting, because I'm probably going to bring my own point of view in here. When we talk about being kind to ourselves, and of course, like thinking outside the box and going against the grain, it leads me to thinking about, how can nurturing this muscle serve us to navigate the big bad wolf that we call imposter syndrome, that many people are debating even the usage of this terminology. Like, a lot of people hate the words imposter syndrome for many reasons, but how, like, nurturing this muscle is helping us turn these voices down. And I think kindness is one of it, right? But what more?
So I think like the idea of slowing down and taking stock is really important. Liz just said, like, you forget what you've done, and Teresa mentioned, like, we just become reactive, and it's, I think, taking those moments to say, okay, like, I've achieved this, I've done this, and you train yourself in like a positive way. I don't necessarily like agree or disagree with imposter syndrome. I think we like to like buzz a lot of stuff up, but I know everybody has moments where they doubt things, and when you have doubt, then you can't think clearly, and you can't chart a path forward. And so taking those moments and being kind to yourself, and then remembering, helps you to then build a good strategy to move forward.
Yeah. How does that resonate with the rest of you?
So for me, imposter syndrome is believing that you've not achieved, or you're not worthy of whatever you've achieved. And I feel like that a lot of the time. So what do? I just like I mentioned before, is just having people that surround yourself the right people, supportive environment. And it's also me, things like this. So I was very uncomfortable coming on here talking about myself. Never done this before in this level of detail. But giving, saying, what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get better at it. This is an experience. I'm grateful for it. It's just turning its head. Sometimes it's just the way perspective, changing perspective. I remember I had a plant. Someone gifted me a plant when I moved here. I honestly, because I don't know how to look after anything, so I promised myself I was going to ensure this plant lives. I used to polish it. They had like a special oil, like it's called neem oil or so. I used to polish the leaves every day. I watered it. At some point, I think I was overfeeding it, and then someone said, you only feed it once a day. I did that. It started looking good again. I'll prune it, and then I went on holiday just for the weekend. their plant just died when I came back to a dead plant. Oh, I know, and I really, really tried. So what did I do? So what I'm trying to say here is what you feed is what will survive. So if, Mona invited me to come speak here, if I said, you know what, I can't do it, I'm really shy, I can only public speak for work, I would never get the chance to grow. So it's just facing your fears. It's how you beat imposter syndrome, in my opinion. And just knowing that, there's someone who has done it before you, you're just, at the end of the day, no one is looking at you. No one is worrying about you. It's just all in your head. And what you feed, what you nurture is what we grow. I didn't nurture my plant for those few days I was away, and it died. And now I've got another plant that is thankfully still alive, because I've not had any holiday, which is probably a bad thing. And it's still alive because I'm watering it every day and looking after it. So it's just that, like Teresa said, 10%. And I think 1%, that small incremental increase, that incremental increase that you do daily. So I know I've got my 9 to 5, but outside of my 9 to 5, I always ensure I spend at least 30 minutes on my personal goals. So it's just small steps, that eventually add up to that big blossoming. And that's why you see a lot of successful people. You just go, oh my gosh, that person became famous overnight. No, they had hours, they had lots of no's, they had lots of doors shut against them, they had lots of rejections, they had lots of late nights. They've had to spend years owning the craft. And then you just hear about them, they perform a little song, and then the next thing everyone knows them, and you think, oh, this was just that song. It's never just that one song. It's been lots of hard work behind that you never get to see, unfortunately, and people forget to talk about when they become successful.
Yeah, it's all I don't know if you like to do that. When I see a very popular artist that I take a liking to, and then I go backward to see, those songs that had 100 views. And sometimes, sometimes for some artists, I was like, well, I quite prefer that. It was quite good, but we just didn't have visibility on it. So it's about giving visibility to what serves you the most, and so, to a certain extent. And I mean, I want to switch to the juicy questions, because I feel like
Can I add then to imposter syndrome a little bit? I think, well, when we talk about resilience or imposter syndrome, I like how all of us actually see it very differently. Everyone have this description of what it is actually. So I think that imposter syndrome is kind of that you don't believe in yourself, right? You don't believe in yourself that you can do it. So if believing in yourself means building this evidence through the lifestyle of experimentation, then I think if you truly embrace that, your life will be so rich with these different experiences that there will be no space for imposter syndrome anymore. And because again, the imposter syndrome is being scared of this task which is unknown in front of you. As soon as you understand the task and you know how to tackle it, there is no more space even for imposter syndrome. But not only there's no more space for imposter syndrome, it becomes boring. Suddenly there is no more challenge, and it is almost scary. So I think in this way you could even welcome imposter syndrome, because I feel like it's a sign that you are in a learning mode, and that's exciting.
Oh, Teresa, you can't give me something this juicy and not give us an example of something that has become interesting to play with in your experience.
What do you mean? What do you mean? When I tackle my imposter syndrome?
Yeah, one belief that you managed to go over and tell it to F off.
I think that, for example, becoming a public figure, going out there like we are doing now, is one of those things. It's scary to show your soul to others. It's people are judgmental, and it's definitely very scary. But at some point you need to decide. I think every time when there are all these studies where they ask what people regretted the most at their deathbed, and it's obviously always that I didn't spend enough time with my friends, and I cared what others think about me, you know. And I think that's the best way to look at it. Like, just imagine yourself 100 years in the future and you're at this deathbed, and I'm like, is it really matter that maybe I said something wrong, or I did something wrong, or, you know, I experimented too much? I don't want to say fail. But yeah, so I think it's just being okay with show authentic yourself is bloody damn scary.
Mm.
I'll just add to that. Thanks, Teresa. I'll just add to that. It just reminds me of what my mom always says to me when I'm feeling like I can't do something. She goes, "An eagle is always an eagle. An eagle in Nigeria, if you take it on the plane to Australia or to the UK, it's still an eagle. There's no other name for it." Yeah. So, and that's what my mom says to me. Regardless of what you go through, regardless of you know, life has its ups and downs. Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. Even when I don't win, I'm still an eagle. And I think that always sticks to me, and have that at the back of my mind.
Yeah, hell yeah, that sounds great.
Mhm.
How about you, Amity? Do you have like an anecdote where you feel you had that switch happening or something you overcame?
I feel like I can't really compete with these anecdotes because they're so bang on. But no, I just think I want to.
Imposter syndrome talking.
No, I mean, like,
Exactly.
I don't know how they come back after this. So, but I just love like the fact that like you're always going to be yourself. That's super important. And I think like the minute you embrace that and you recognize like you only hold yourself accountable, then you can do exactly what Teresa is saying. Like, you can face any challenge, and then the more you do it, it's like you build that muscle and it becomes easier. And then you actually like look for bigger challenges. So yeah, I really resonate with like everything that has been said. I think it's been great.
And we still have people in the audience who have access to the chat. Guys, we're going to get into the questions from the audience. So if you want to drop a question in the chat, I'll take a look at it and I'll queue them for as long as we have time. We still have plenty, so don't worry about it. And I can kick things up by starting with the juicy one. And I say juicy, I mean, is it still juicy? That is the question. Because we're talking about women and resilience, and I wanted to ask the women here, what does it mean to be a young, talented woman in a world of white, middle-aged men? And actually, is this still a contemporary topic? Is that still the case? Is the world really a world of white middle-aged men? Is that how it is? And get your thoughts about it.
Okay, I think it's 100% still a topic, sadly, even in very developed societies. But I personally, I think it's we need to talk about it, but I kind of almost, we talk about it so much at the same time, and I think we talk about it from like wrong angle, how patriarchy is bad. Yes, it is, you know, like, or white middle-aged man, and then everyone is just kind of feel guilty just by being white and middle-aged. I think yeah, the wrong example. But when I look in my life, you know, I'm trying to, okay, we learn from the lessons from the past, but then I would prefer to talk about the future and what we can do now. So I think to be a talented, or any woman, you know, I think everyone has a talent. So every woman and every man is talented, but we still need to do more from like government or workplace perspective to actually support, you know, the reason that every month we have period. I think women are still heavily penalized for having kids, and, you know, losing like a lot of opportunities. And I think governments and the workplaces have so much more to do to support us. In some countries it's better, like Scandinavia. In some, like in US, in 2 weeks you need to go back to the workforce, which is just insane for me personally. But yeah, I would probably do more like advocate for this radical changes where we can be women in a workplace at all.
Yeah, that's very powerful. How does this resonate with you?
Yeah,
Minty?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, for me, I look at it at, like, have you heard of the concept of resource scarcity? So the less you have of something, the more valuable it becomes. Working in an industry that's like, or every industry that's very male dominated, I feel like I've used that to my advantage of being something different, something educated, something unique, a different kind of like energy. So yeah, I tend to welcome these challenges because I feel like they're actually just a strategic kind of benefit for myself to move forward. But yeah, that's kind of how I've always navigated these situations.
How about you, Liz?
Like I said before, resilience is a muscle. And the more it's a natural journey. This whole resilience thing, you can't just wake up. I don't think I'd expect like a 15-year-old to be as resilient as we are. So it's something that happens, through professional and personal maturity. How have I navigated being a woman in a male-dominated? I think there's a saying in Nigeria that is, they say you have to act like a thief to catch a thief. So in the male-dominated industry, lots of men, and you just pick someone who is nice to you at work and just ask them to be your mentor. Ask them to guide you, because you have to fit into that environment one way or the other. But it was also finding ways. I've always thought I had to act like a man and be tough at work to fit into the old IT space. But then I've worked with some amazing female leaders as well that have just brought their feminine energy into work and still done really well. So it's just having to find that balance and what works for you, and also the power of mentorship. To be honest, like, sometimes I'll just call up my mentor and be like, I've got an interview, or I've got a meeting with this person. How do I, this is what their personality is like. What do you suggest I do? Yeah. And there's the power of words. There's the power of words. There's the power of body language, and it's just tweaking what you want to say, but tweaking it to in a way that you don't come across as angry or intimidated, and and you still as an assertive as well. You still come across as assertive, and sometimes I can't do that myself. Sometimes I have to get someone to help me, and by the time they say, I'm like, this is so simple, but I couldn't have come up with that. So it's using the resources around us as well as our support network. I know there was a time quite recently where I was almost like being bullied at on a project I was on, and I didn't have to say anything. The people around me saw it and said something. So it's very important you have your network, your people, that look out for you, and and are willing to mentor you and help you grow in that space. Because this whole thing about patriarchy is not going nowhere. There's still the gender pay gap even in 2024. So it's just, what do we do about it? We women are not going to bow out of the workplace. We just have to learn to find ways to work with it and become more confident in who we are. So regardless of, and then you mentioned young talented women. You could be a woman and may not be aware of the limitations of your talent as well. There's also that. And I think we women we get a bit defensive quite easily, if I can generalize that way. So it's also being able to take feedback. Like I said to you before, I believe strongly in the power of community and networking. When I get some feedback, I'll be like, oh no, thank you very much. And then I go to my mentors or people I know, acknowledge we have more experience than myself, and I'd be like, this is what someone said, what are your thoughts? Oh yeah, Elizabeth, you can get better at doing this, you can get better at doing that. So they actually did have a point. Sometimes at work, being a young female or a female, the men are not necessarily out to get you, but also I wouldn't want someone just give me a job just because I'm a young Black woman. I want to give me a job because you think I can do the job. So, but if you don't expect them to tiptoe around you in giving you feedback, then you're sending the wrong message as well. Like, oh, tiptoe around me because I'm female. So, I want you to treat me as an equal, not as a subordinate. So I can take the feedback, I can work on myself, I can show you that I can do the job, and I will deliver regardless of my gender. So that's how I go about it.
And it's interesting because Cass has brought a question to the table, which definitely resonate with what you said. And she's asking, how do you maintain your feminine energy in business without giving into that pressure to behave respected and to behave so you can be respected and promoted. So like how to find that balance basically in between what you explained, trying to fit in, but at the same time be yourself.
It's a tough one. I'm not gonna lie. It's a very tough one. It's resilience is, it's a natural journey, and as you get older, hopefully you get wiser, you get lots more confident. I know the way I show up to work now is probably different to my 9 to 5. It's different to how I show up to work when I was in my 20s. I can remember when I finished uni, I had my first real job in Australia, in Sydney, and the company I worked for, a lady said to me, a senior manager said to me, "Oh, Liz, you've got braids. I think you look better if you had straight hair because it would be more professional." And silly me, I paid like $100 or so, and that was a lot of money then for those braids. And I went home, took it out, and then straightened my hair. But now, if you said that to me, best believe I will have the biggest braids and I'll wrap it all up and look like an African queen to work. If you said that to me now, so it's just I think as we get older and we'll have more jobs, we have more confidence, we have a better support network, we know our rights. And we know where to go to for help. I think we get more confident in maintaining our feminine energy. Now I can show up to work in makeup. I can wear high heels if I want to, and that's okay. But when I was a young grad, did I have the confidence to? No, because I felt like I had to conform. So I feel like it comes with time. Being able to show up, and it's quite sad, really, because I spoke to last year there was an event for women, and I spoke for young girls, and I spoke to them. A lot of them were just like they had to be a different person at work. So this topic is not just here. It's something that happens a lot that we realize that it actually does. And honestly, for me, I don't know what you. I'm really really keen to hear what you two ladies have to say to that. But for me, my confidence grew, and and being able to maintain my feminine energy, that only got better as I got better at what I did, and as I got more confident with time. So it wasn't like this overnight. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's thank you for sharing, Liz. I think it's also, what do we mean by the feminine energy as well? I think for me it's blending a lot, but if I interpret it correctly, I think when I think about female relationships, for example, like there is this quite widely known notion that female relationships are a bit stronger than male, that female can show their emotions a bit more for whatever reason. Most likely, in my opinion, is socialization. I think everyone is able to do it if they would have been socialized from a very young age. But I think if you go to like politics, office politics, like understanding how to take the leadership roles, this kind of feminine traits, which I hope in the future will not be considered feminine anymore, and then will be just the standard for everyone, actually helps you, because you need to have good relationship with everyone. You need to have this like strong empathy to actually support everyone around you, up, down, at the same level. So I think you actually can really well take this very positive feminine traits and take it to your advantage in building a strong community around you. And that community, like if you give to the community will give you back, and then you will achieve what you want.
Yeah, that's very powerful to an extent. And it's true that there is a certain debate around what is feminine energy, what is masculine energy. It's spoken extensively, and I think it's been brought up by perhaps some negative approaches in the world. But I think at the end of the day, and Cassandra has clarified, like, do you need to behave like a man in the office to be heard today? Really? Or can you just behave the way you want to behave, per se? One of the if you don't have anything to add, I don't know, Amity, if you did.
I was just gonna say, like, if you don't turn up as your authentic self, and much like Liz said, you grow into that, like it becomes difficult over time and it just compounds, and then you tend to not get anywhere except for frustrated. So realistically, like, you just got to lean in, like we were saying earlier, to what you do and hone those skills, and I think like you'll get where you need to go.
Yeah, let the braids out.
And sorry.
Yeah, no, carry on.
And also read the room, you know. So sometimes, you know, I've worked on multiple projects where, you know, one project is quite laid back and then the next project is quite uptight. You know, obviously I'm not going to bring the same energy from a laid back project and an uptight project, you know. So it's just also being able to read the room and being able to adapt, and your emotional intelligence, you know, gets better as you grow older, have more experiences, make your mistakes, learn from it. So just everything we've been talking about, you know, over the past hour definitely adds to, you know, you showing up as your authentic self. Is also, you know, you being emotionally intelligent, reading a room, you know, knowing, observing others, what is right or wrong. A lot of rules are usually unspoken. They're not written down. It's not one of those where you sign on the first day at work or induction, all of that. It's usually the unspoken rules, which you need a bit of emotional intelligence to decipher.
Yeah. And empathy, really, isn't it? When you walk in a room and you read that room, being able to understand that you have needs, but that others also have needs. And it's in French, there's always this saying about freedom where, you know, your freedom stops where others people's freedom starts. And it's always trying to find that balance of how we can live with each other, you know, and how you can be yourself without actually preventing someone to get enough space to be as well. And when it comes to living together and living as a society and supporting each other, there's really this idea that we spoke about, that we disagreed about, which is around this women supporting women. Is that a myth or a reality? And how much we could be our best allies or our best enemy. Is that still a thing as well? And how can we navigate that being resilient? So a lot thrown at you. First of all, myth or reality?
I think like it's just how you perceive the world, right? If you want to believe that women supporting women isn't a thing, then it's not going to be. I think like networks, it doesn't matter whether they're male or female, as long as you have that connection with people and you grow and you mutually support one another, it's always going to be a positive thing. I think the reason why it's publicized so much is just because it's like one of those things that gets a lot of attention because it's somewhat negative. It's about females, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying it doesn't exist and that it can't happen, but it could also happen with the other gender as well. So I think, yeah, it's like relationships need to be mutually beneficial. And when they become like unbalanced is when you start to see these discrepancies. So, yeah.
How about you? Teresa, you're biting your lips. Burning comment on this.
Am I? No, actually, this is the comment topic. I definitely don't have nothing to add. Maybe I'm oblivious, but I did not notice much of the differences in different genders regarding being ally or not. I think a shitty person is a shitty person regardless of
Gender.
So yeah.
I've been quite fortunate to have lots of good female mentors throughout my journey, and I think I've mentioned the power of mentorship, networking. I've said that, yeah, a lot on this call. So I think for me, the women supporting women, it is out there. They're women because. Yes, we all have our struggles, which is, you know, but there's some struggles that are like specifically for the female gender, and sometimes, or most of the time, in my personal experience, I found that I could connect with, you know, my women mentors or female mentors slightly better. especially starting out as a young grad or starting out as a young professional, I found it easier to have female mentors. And now I'm open to, I've got male mentors as well in my respective areas. So yeah, the women support women, it is a thing. It is, but like I agree with what you ladies said. A shitty person is a shitty person, and support cuts across gender. Once again, I think it's just finding your tribe at the end of the day, regardless of gender. Are they my person? Can I learn from them? Like Mita said, a relationship has to be mutually beneficial. It's when it's not, then when that imbalance occurs, then there's discrepancies. So it is, for me right now, it's not just about your gender. It's about, what do you have to offer? Can I offer anything in return? And also just about finding my tribe. But yeah, women empowering women. I think starting out for young girls, because of then we have that nurturing thing with us. It was really nice having my first mentor, professional mentor, is Jen Todd Wilson. She probably hate that I mentioned her name on this call, but as a young girl, it was very easy to connect with her because she understood where I was coming from, and it was a lot easier to talk about when you have mentors, especially at a young age. You start to talk about personal things as well, which you might not necessarily feel comfortable speaking about with the other gender. So for me, the power of mentorship, especially female mentorship in my life, has been enormous, and I'm really appreciative for that. So yeah, there is that thing about women supporting women. Definitely, there is that, and I would like to see more of it actually.
So it seems that, of course, because all of us are women or identify as women, shall I say, or I'm going to stop digging a hole here.
Right.
A lot is a lot can be taken from that gender angle. There are like some physiological things that could be nice to have in terms of what the ecosystem can offer to us as a society in general, in the workplace, in paid gap, in like these topics that are still actual. But when it comes to just being a decent human being, there are some values here that are matching across all genders. So we established that there's this dichotomy that works well together in such topic. One question that was asked in the comments when we started advertising the event was really, someone was curious about, the advice that you'd have to give on how to become more resilient, but specifically for women. Like as a woman, is there like something that you should do that a guy cannot do that as a woman you'd recommend?
Lift weights.
Great bicep.
I don't know about you guys, but I rely a lot on my intuition. And I never used to really follow that when I was young. I would always question things, but as I've grown into myself and had more experiences, I tend to leverage this a lot more. And I don't know if this is something that's very bespoke to women. I feel like it might be, but for me, that's something that I tend to do a lot more of these days than I used to.
Mm-hmm.
So listening to your gut feeling and engaging with this intuition.
Yeah, when you have opportunities and you're open to opportunities, they tend to come at you left, right, and center. And in the beginning, you're so excited about them that you want to take every single one, but you don't necessarily listen to yourself and think about okay, in my grand plan or the journey that I'm on, which of these makes more sense? And in the beginning, I was kind of stretching myself thin, just jumping here, there, everywhere, which is probably why I've lived and worked in a million different countries. But then after a while, I started to realize okay, yeah, I'm making a lot of movement and I'm making a lot of traction, but it's not always pushing me to the path that I want. So being able to look at things a bit more holistically and trusting in myself when I look at stuff and following through with what I originally thought, where sometimes I would go against my own grain and it wouldn't necessarily turn out the way that I would want it to. Still good experience, but I feel like now that I'm leaning into that a bit more, I'm making better progress than I've ever made before. So I don't know if that's a female thing, but that's what I do.
Yeah, I can totally relate to what Miti just said. For me, it's what advice would I give? I'm going to twist this a bit. It's the ability to say no. I think we women, in my experience, are very, oh yes, we'll do it. Oh yeah, it's just being able to say no and always say yes to things that serve you. And that honestly sounds a lot easier to say, but a lot harder to implement. Because yeah, I think we women have just got naturally got this caring nature and want to do everything and want to be, people pleasers. And but I think for me, the advice I would give is learning when to say no and only saying yes to the things that serve you.
Yeah, to add as well to Amita's of trusting your intuition and listening to yourself a bit more, I think like, okay, so what's the difference then between us and another gender, right? It's the physiological one. So I think probably in now in these years I am on this earth, I am starting to a little bit embrace more like does it mean to be in this female body and actually listening not only to intuition but to your body. And I think one of my life coaches, she really follows, for example, her cycle. She says like, well, I have this specific week, I am not doing hard work, and I really following my natural cycle so that I work around it, and I actually do hard work when I'm the most prime for it, and then when it's time to rest, I actually listen to my physical body and do it. So I think it was a very good lesson for me too, which I'm trying to implement at the moment in my life. But it was, yeah, good advice.
Mm.
Yeah, follow your cycle, follow your intuition. And yeah, it seems really that there are some physiological things that we have to take in consideration, but that all in all, um, a lot of things apply to any human being, no matter what identification is had there, no matter what gender it is. Um, Resilience can be applied to all. I'm um, just looking at Austin's message here, which says a female thing regarding resilience is that they are more attuned to mental health, emotional intelligence, and will talk more openly to a group. This is because they are generally more nurturing than males. And I think you mentioned that with the feminine energy earlier. What do you think, Teresa? You were going to say something.
Yeah, or are socialized to be more nurturing than males. I'm sorry, I have to call it out. Thank you, Austin. Very nice words, but I think everyone should be nurturing.
Have you seen the study it's in one of the Nordic countries? So they're kind of like when they're raising children and they're going to early school and socializing them, they're not putting any kind of like, I guess, constructions around like this is a male thing to do, this is a female thing to do. They're literally just allowing children to be a bit more like open. They want to do this, which is typically considered male, they can go and do that. And so yeah, it's having like really interesting outcomes in the way that I guess they're moving into like their younger years, their teen years. And I do wonder what impact this will have like long term on this cohort of kids, just because we're not socializing these norms. So
Can't wait.
yeah, it's gonna be super interesting.
But is that, you can't wait, T, but is that not going to make the world a little more bland and boring and we'll have nothing to disagree about?
I don't agree with this, because like you're your own person and over time you develop your individuality and like you become yourself. As we were talking, like you grow into your authentic self. So I think like it doesn't matter what, if you give everybody equal footage in the beginning and you don't put these constructs around them, like imagine what they can become later in life, because they're not being forced to do this or do that or think this way. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
I'm very passionate about this subject, so completely.
Yeah, that's an interesting angle to take. And I'm going to ask you if you have anything to add, or some final words or sentence that you want to leave the audience with before I wrap up and summarize this.
Well, I can say that it's just when I think about resilience, just like a final word, It's I always thought about it again when I was a bit younger that it means that that's it. I gained this resilience, and that's some kind of endpoint to this resilience. That's it. I am like a tank going. Nothing can touch me anymore. You know, like I'm that's it. I'm resilient, and whatever life throws at me, I am resilient and unbothered. But I think now that resilience is actually does not mean that you will never be affected. True resilience is radical acceptance and learning how to cope with yourself when life throws you curveballs. So yeah, that's one from me.
And just to add to what Teresa said, what I like to add is your mental health. You know, in as much people tend to call me strong or resilient and feel like I'm Superman, I'm untouchable. No, when you think someone is strong or resilient, doesn't mean they don't need help as well. Doesn't mean they don't need you checking on them to ask how they are. So I think for me, it's also keeping your mental health in check with resilience, because when people expect you to always be resilient, then you kind of feel like you have to put up a face or a show to show that you're always strong. You can always bounce back. Every time I bounce back better. Those Instagram slogans. But it's not that way. You need to just take it easy on yourself. Mind your mental health, and and that's the only way you can optimize your full potentials. Because you can have all the skills in the world, if you don't have the mental health to back it up, then you're kind of messed up. So it's check on your strong friends, so there's no such thing. I actually don't like the word strong anymore. I think resilient is a much better word than strong, because strong just means like you're unbeatable, and that's not the case. It's a muscle. You get you train it, you get better at it, you nurture it, and you take care of your mental health.
It's lovely. Coming especially from three ladies that I know are going to exercise on a very regular basis. I'm just thinking that maybe we'll get together in the coming weeks and take a picture of our biceps too. Resilience. Amity, is there any last words?
No, I really just enjoyed the session, and I love all of the takeaways that we've kind of put together. It was really good.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks to everyone who participated in the chat. Really value your presence. Thanks to the audience and to everyone watching the recording. And thank you to the wonderful speakers I've had the honor to have today. To summarize everything, I think there are a few quotes that really stuck. And it's really understanding that resilience takes something. It takes something to be that special someone who go against the grain.
Mm-hmm.
An eagle is still an eagle.
Multiplication.
But also that we need to remove that negative connotation that is around failure and resilience, and that the embracing life as an experimentation is helping us to enjoy this process and enjoy this life that each and single one of you have had. You've lived so many hard things and beautiful things, but it's learning to enjoy all these things and the person that it makes you to be that have been the biggest beauty in it all. So I'm very honored. Please, yes, indeed, in the audience, connect with each other, connect with our wonderful speakers. And I hope this has been useful, this has been insightful, and that it has inspired you to embrace a journey of resilience and change.
And thank you to Muna, our wonderful host.
Yeah, thank you.
Muna.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
I'll
you.
end the stream.
Bye. Bye.